Okay, so we are officially live and streaming, and today is March 23rd. It's Wednesday, and this is Reflection Artist Live, episode number 66, and we have special guests with us today, Ian Rammelkamp. Did I say that correctly on your last name?
You did, yeah.
Okay, just had to make sure. I thought about that for a sec. However, if you don't know Ian, Ian is the owner of Autofiber. Autofiber is, just an unreal type of approach to microfibers. There's others in the market, but he has 21 years in the business, in the industry. It's a family type scenario where, his dad was involved, which you'll get into. So there's so much that Ian brings to the table on the knowledge of the microfiber towels, that category in general, applicators. That's something we want to dive into with your genius approach to applicators. So Ian, tell me, and thank you, of course, on behalf of Buff and Shine and for joining us, but tell me, how did you get started in the wonderful world of detailing with all of this, and of course, bringing to the table microfibers?
Yeah, so like you kind of alluded to, in the mid 90s, and this is when I was in high school, my dad started, I think he like met somebody at a gas station or something.
One of those tables that were flipped out in front of the doors.
No, it was just like my dad's the kind of guy, he was just real personable and talked to everybody everywhere. Entrepreneur. He had a Mako, a body shop, like painting shop in the 80s. So he was kind of familiar with the whole automotive, like restoration industry in those days. And so he met somebody just randomly, and the guy, I don't know if the guy was like importing the towels already. This was before, microfiber towels were like 20 bucks a piece. They weren't made in China. I don't even think they were barely just getting started being made in Korea. Most of it was made in Japan. And he was so excited about the product. It was called like the miracle cloth or whatever. And it was crazy because he brought it home. And I remember that feeling, like you touch it on your hands and it was a weird, like the clinginess of it, right? On your fingers. You're not used to it. The texture of it was weird, but he was so excited. And so, he started building a business, and they were one of the first companies that sold microfiber in the US. And kind of the way it took years to kind of get going. One of the original industries that really converted was the automotive and the detailing industry. All the way back then, the whole industry is kind of experimental and always changing and testing stuff and trying to find new ways to do it. And so, he was just building the business, and I was just a kid, right? So I wasn't really paying it. I was hanging out with my friends and doing sports and stuff. And I went to college, late 90s, graduated 2001. And I knew I wanted to start a business. So I had studied like, this thing called cognitive science, which is kind of like psychology and computer science. But I wanted to, the internet was just starting. So I thought I wanted to create like an internet business, build websites or something. So what I did when I graduated college was I ended up just buying some of the towels from my dad's company and, started selling stuff on eBay, built a website, was trying to figure out how to do this e-commerce thing. I didn't even know if the towels or detailing was kind of what I wanted to do. It really
direction,
right?
Yeah.
It wasn't really the direction. Towels are not a very sexy.
Did you have that name Autofiber out the gate? Was that your original name?
No, it wasn't original out the gate. That it didn't take long to do that, and I can kind of get into that. But so really what happened was, I was just trying to kind of hustle out there on the internet. Like I was on the forums, the Autopia forum. There was a few other forums. And I was kind of just hustling on the forums, trying to get people, convince detailers to buy stuff. And so in 2000,
the miracle towel. Listen, I got a different towel. I promise it's a miracle towel.
Yeah. And so I did a couple different websites. I did Microfiber Tech, which some people that have been in the detailing industry probably know from a long time. So that was kind of, we were selling just general purpose towels, but then I also was trying to start the Autofiber brand. So if you like, I can go back onto the Wayback Machine on the internet, and you can see the original Autofiber site from 2003.
wow.
So that's when I started it. Now, the thing is it was the beginning of the whole microfiber in the detailing industry. Most detailers didn't understand it or necessarily respect it. They were scared of it because it was polyester and not cotton. People were like very into Turkish cotton. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diapers and stuff like that.
Yeah, diapers and yep. And so with Autofiber, I really wanted to create like a brand around it, but the industry wasn't quite ready for it. And the business really evolved into like a wholesale business, is selling to lots of these other chemical companies or supplier companies out there. So really for the first, 10, 15 years of the business, we really were focused on just wholesaling the products, just selling pallets and containers to other companies.
Well, that's one way of getting it out there.
Yeah, right.
To
so
the masses right out the gate.
Yeah. So it wasn't really so much direct to consumer. So the Autofiber thing kind of fell off, and we really were trying to just grow the business. And along the lines, I think maybe 2005, my dad had some problems with his business partners, and he came and we kind of joined forces. And then it really became a family business where it was, my mom worked for the business, me, my dad. And then, about 10 years ago, my sister came in, and she pretty much runs like the day-to-day part of the business. My cousin works here. He actually we do custom printing on a lot of the towels, and he went from working in the warehouse, and now he does all the custom printing. So it really is like a very family-based business.
And you guys were definitely on that first wave of introduction to the market of microfiber.
Yeah, I mean, it all was because of my dad. We all thought my dad was crazy about it, being excited about towels. Now it doesn't seem that crazy. Like there's some people that are like just crazy freaks about microfiber towels. And you can consider me probably one of them too, because I spent so much of my time dealing with them. But we thought he was just insane, but he was obviously onto something.
I'm sure he looks at it now and he's like, yeah, the microfiber I had then compared to what's out now, that's a whole different language compared to what it was then.
Yeah, there was only like a few different types. There wasn't all these different weaves. Like this was before waffle weaves came along. And man, I remember when waffle weaves first came along, we thought it was the most amazing thing. So, and now that's just kind of like, an everyday
just another version.
Just another
version of that.
Of the towel. Yeah.
Wow.
But so the business has just grown. And then over the last kind of like, I guess since 2016 or so, 17 is when I really, decided we needed to build a brand around the products, because there's so, everything changed from kind of the market got flooded with a lot of different versions. Microfiber became, something where everything was microfiber. And then people start to think, they attach this buzzword to the product and they think that they're all the same. But, microfiber isn't all the same. There's all different types of qualities and variations. And there's so many different ways to make it work and perform in different, for different purposes and in different circumstances. And then also it's easy to make a product that looks or feels almost exactly the same, but doesn't actually perform the same. So the idea with, really pushing the Autofiber brand was to kind of set ourselves apart from kind of the competition. Because what happens is, we were selling a bunch of our products direct to a lot of these distributors, and then these cheaper knockoff companies would come along and make copies almost exactly of the same products we were selling. And then there was no brand to like people to recognize, to realize, oh, these are the Autofiber towels, which are actually really good, focused on quality. It's not this cheap crap that looks exactly the same, but doesn't perform.
That's the same thing we have with pads. I mean, if it has the same profile, like with microfiber, if it has the same stitch edge, has the same low, short and high pile design, but it's the same color, Like us, we have an orange pad, they have an orange pad. The consumer, it's just
Yeah.
an orange pad to them. They think it's the same thing. They
Yeah,
don't
there's
know-
no way to know, and there's no
Nope.
way to like vet it unless you're like a true professional. And that's the difference. Like with a company like ours, our whole business has really been built on our discussions with detailers and professionals and getting feedback. Like we have really tried, and I think that's just the success of our business is based upon getting that feedback and adjusting and making the products based upon what our customers are requesting. And so the knockoff companies, somebody comes out there and sees a yellow towel with a black edge or whatever, and, you know, just makes it as cheap as possible, you know, it's not going to work the same. And it doesn't have that whole history of the development that we've put into that product.
No, that makes sense. It's same thing with the pads. It's funny. There's a lot of similarities between, you know, microfiber towels and pads because it's so easy to make them look the same, but obviously performance and everything else behind it is completely different.
Yeah. And that's where the brand really makes a difference. So I would say that our business has really improved, and it's been a great thing for our business to really focus on the branding and, you know, the messaging, because really, man, customer service is really important to us. And the other hard part about this too is that, and it's the same with pads too, is, and it works this way in the detailing industry because there's no perfect way to do any process, right? There's so many different approaches to reach the same goal.
Yep.
And guys have different techniques and they are using different combinations of products, right? So there's no perfect towel for any one task, and one product that's going to work, you know, for one customer isn't going to work for another customer. And that doesn't mean the product's not good. It just means it doesn't fit into their process.
Yep.
So, you know, it's become a lot more complicated for the consumer perspective. But I think this is one of the great things about detailing, and why I love the whole industry is just because it's so experimental and it's cutting edge and things are changing all the time. Like just the evolution of this industry over the 21 years that I've been interacting with it is pretty phenomenal. Not only just the detailers themselves, but the companies all involved. It's just been, it's awesome. So.
Yeah, and you've been able to see that transition of unity as well. You've seen it go from where everybody's separate on one, you know, one manufacturer on this side of the room, the other one over there. And if they cross paths at the bar to go get a drink, they got to report back to their companies to where now we're all in one room, you know, sitting right next to each other, eating, breaking bread, having fun, having conversations, and no conflicts and no negativity.
Yeah,
for the most part.
It's weird because it feels like at the beginning when I started, and this is kind of like when the whole internet forum thing was starting. And I feel like that's probably when the whole detailing thing really took off, because people on these forums were all exchanging information and kind of helping each other. Even though everyone was separated, most of these people probably had never met each other and never would meet each other in real life. You know, so it seemed like there was a lot of kind of vitriol and anger inside those forums and stuff. There was a lot of camaraderie too, and a lot of kind of teamwork and helping each other. And then it was weird when the whole coding thing happened, like all the teams started, like really the teams came along, you know, from all the different companies.
It's like team colors, like gangs.
Yeah, it was kind of like gang stuff. It was
you red, you pink, you green. What's up?
It's very true. So it became, I don't know. It's interesting because I think, you know, the coding was a higher end market and people were trying to protect territories and stuff like that. And
that's when that term was actually a thing, territories, right?
Yeah. And the
coding companies created that space.
Yeah. I mean, and it was kind of like, it's kind of like an older model of distribution. Like that's how distribution used to happen when, before the internet came around, products were distributed and people had territories and stuff like that. And so the problem with that, it's like a clash of worlds, right? Because the internet is like open and free and people are communicating and sharing and people are selling different stuff. So the territory thing is really hard to implement in the internet world. So I think that the team gang thing has really been broken down.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
and a lot of the companies are, playing fair. I think it's a lot of wasted energy to be out there wasting your energy worrying about your competition.
No, that's where a lot of these, legacy brands have done very well with communicating amongst each other. I mean, you take, Bob, for example, from PNS. He's a prime example of being able to vibe and get along and do business with, a lot of different manufacturers. And it's one of those things where it's very respectable because he's able to set that trend where others are like, oh, okay. And yourself, and you did a podcast just recently or not too long ago with Brad Company as well. And, from the outside, the consumers, the detailers, they see it as, oh, they're two separate brands. But then when they actually see yourself and like the other brand, what they would consider the competitor brand, which really it's not, in the same arena, right? Looking for the same goals. But they see that and they're like, oh, wow, they actually talk and get along. That's cool. And then it gives a whole different perspective. And the end user's like, wow, I really like these guys. They're really doing something for the bigger picture, not just for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, actually, the way I think about it, being friends with your competitors is actually thinking the bigger picture. Because if your competitor becomes your enemy, I just don't see the value in that.
Wasted energy, like you said.
Yeah, it wastes your energy, and then you just have it creates more risk in your business. Like, I don't need my competitors out here like attacking me or like sending attack dogs or trying to cancel our business or whatever for whatever reason. Like,
yeah,
I'm always gonna try to be respectful and treat them how I want to be treated. And lots of times, in the same industry, it's like with towels, like, if my competitor needs something, I want them to come to me and I can help them, and maybe they can help me if they need something.
Yeah, keep it within the same circle.
And I think that that's, there's a huge opportunity actually in detailing as detailing becomes, kind of more specialized across all these different, paint corrections, coatings, even getting into film, and then like the mobile guys and even just straight car washes, like, tint, all these different parts of the business. Local detailers and service providers really need to network together, and they can build their businesses stronger by kind of networking with their quote unquote competition. So that to me is like kind of the future of this business where,
oh yeah, like indirect market share without you having to, take over and strong arm anything. You just join forces. And I think that also puts I don't say the little guy, but the knockoff guy in check to be like, oh crap, they're now bigger and better. Like, how am I going to compete with that?
Yeah, exactly. You kind of almost like have to join the team or the network or the group. And that's one reason why I really like working with the IDA and trying to, get involved with the IDA and trying to help make the IDA better, because I feel like that is where the IDA can really influence the industry and just make it a lot more of a positive place and just make everybody more successful.
Yeah, and there's something to be said in regards to that, because we see both sides of it, being members and playing our roles in the association, but you do get the detailers within the detail community like, oh, I don't want to, I don't do this and that, and they throw shade on it, but they also are asking for change. So it's one of those things I always tell people, listen, for those that are asking for change, in order for you to see change, you got to be part of that. And that's where the engagement aspect happens, not just a membership, but just an engagement. Forget about the membership aspect and all the bells and whistles that come with that, but just engagement helps hear your voice. So if you do have, like you said, there's changes on the forefront that people have and want in the industry. Well, in order for those changes to be done, you've got to be on the forefront and spearhead that and be part of it, not just talking about it. And that's the biggest difference, like you being involved and seeing things and knowing things, especially with 21 years of seeing the transition in this industry. You've got so much knowledge of watching that unfold and being able to help with the new direction, the evolved direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very individualistic type of person. I think it's one of the reasons why, you know, I went to college and, you know, then decided not to stay in academia, and I didn't want to get a corporate job. Like, I wanted to be my own person. So I think, you know, there's a lot of that. Most of the people in detailing have that same similar philosophy. Like, they
Agreed.
are individual type people who want to work from themselves. They're hard workers who, you know, don't want to have a boss.
No, want to be
and that's
self-made.
Self-made, right? And then it almost kind of, an association is kind of contrary to that type of thinking.
Yeah.
So for a
see that.
while, like at the beginning, I didn't understand the IDA. Why do I need to be a part of these associations? Like, I'm my own thing. I'm going to do what I want. But then I kind of switched to it because there's the power in the networking, and just the value of all these other people. Like, I think I joined the IDA because I signed up and, like, I went to the Mobile Tech Expo. I decided to get a booth. This was like 5 or 6 years ago. How long ago were you the president? How many years ago was
18.
that? 18. So
4 years now. Jeez.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that was when I ended up joining, because I feel like one of the first times I was at the IDA meeting was when you were the president, or maybe you were being, they were like inaugurating you as the president. And just I was very impressed by the whole, like, the vibe of the whole feeling and the camaraderie of it. So, because what had ended up happening, you know, I got a booth for Autofiber, and Prentice came to my booth and he was like, hey, you know, you should join the IDA. And we started talking about it. And when he told me how much it costs, I was like, man, this is ridiculous. It's like nothing for a supplier. It was like $400 or $500 for a year for a supplier to support this. And I was, hey, you know, whatever. And he was like, I'll come to the meeting. Right. And then that was the meeting. I'm pretty sure that was the meeting when you were inaugurated. And it was the vibe was amazing. And every time it's just, man, the love in that room is awesome.
It was nice to see and feel that again this year too, especially with these past couple of years craziness.
Yeah. So you guys really did convert me into a believer.
That's good. We welcomed you with open arms. We knew you had a lot of fiber knowledge.
Yeah. So and now, like, I spend, you know, a few hours every month working on it. Like, there's board meetings, and then there's meetings and committees and stuff like that. And it's actually, there's another selfish reason for it, you know, being, you know, is that I am the boss of my business and I'm individualistic. Now I get to work in another organization and kind of learn, like, a more bureaucratic system and working with all these different people with different interests.
Yeah.
So from my own personal development and skill level, actually working in the IDA and kind of helping, you know, face the challenges, I think has made me better at business.
100%.
Yeah.
110%. I feel the same exact way as you do. It's like there's so much to learn because you have so many major players at that table. I mean, when I was involved, I mean, you've got, when I joined, and I was on the board since 2017, but just meeting people like Dan from Z-Bar and, you know, Tom from Simonize, you know, these big companies that are just multi-layer, multi-level companies across the US and some and international, and the education that they have, but the knowledge on business, you know, the things that they do and the way that they have a way of doing things it's a great learning experience. So it definitely gives you insight on something that you may have not been able to see immediately or maybe long-term with another scenario, but at least it gives that to you and that opportunity. And that's great for those, like you said, who are individualists who want to build themselves up. And that just an extra little golden nugget that you get along the ride.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's not something that I would have really even thought was real before being involved. But, you know, because I mean, people say they want to get involved, and really, I do want to get involved to help the industry, right? Because if the industry grows and detailers are better, you know, they're going to be more successful and they're going to buy more of my products. But the real benefit to me is just how much I learned working with all these professionals and people who just are a lot more experienced than me. Even though I've been running my business for 20 years, like, I honestly feel like I've been failing for 20 years, right? So, and I'm just constantly learning, and, you know, man, the IDA has been one of the better decisions I made. So.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Now, just going back a little bit, what's the story, or when did you get that epiphany for Autofiber, or just microfibers in general, really hitting a home run with the detail industry? Where did you see that transition? Where did you pick up on it? I don't know if you could remember it, or if there's a story that backs it, but I'm just curious to know how that all transpired.
You know, I think it had to have happened like in those forums, like trying to just sell towels, right? So I just wanted to start a business. I bought cases of towels from my dad's company, and I was it was kind of like I was hustling on the internet, really. And then you get into these forums, you know, the Autopia forum. And so what ended up happening, pretty much my original customer ended up being David Bynan, who had started Autopia way back. I mean, he probably started it in 2000, 2001 or whatever. And so he lived in San Diego. I'm in San Diego. And he was kind of innovative on the internet and stuff like that. And I was interested in all that stuff because of my background in school or whatever, and just what I wanted to start.
It intrigued you.
It was intriguing. Yeah, yes. And so he became like, we kind of worked on products and developed some products together. So he became kind of like the original, you know, wholesale customer of the business. But it wasn't that long after he kind of ended up selling everything to AutoGeek. I think that probably 2008 or 2009, like right after the financial crisis. So man, it was starting off like in my early 20s, it was a long, like, growth period. Like, the business took a long time to build. And there was a lot of friction, whereas now it's so much easier to sell stuff on the internet, and the detailing industry really has expanded.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think to answer the question, it was somehow, you know, in those conversations with David Bynan, who was, you know, kind of doing the same thing, but he was doing it all across, you know, all of the product lines, not just microfiber.
Gotcha. So that was the helpful boost.
Yeah.
Just that networking aspect that allowed you to be able to get in front of an audience that took interest because they found it to be a solution to a lot of problems and a great tool in their arsenal.
Yeah. The interesting thing about him is he kind of left the industry because he thought that it was starting on a downtrend. Like, he had told me when he was selling the business and getting out, he had told me, you know, you tracking the Google trends and the keyword searches are going down. And this is like, God, it had to be 2009, 2010. And he said that the industry was just kind of going away, and he couldn't have been more wrong, right? Because this is right, you know, ceramic coatings were right around the corner. And then the whole, like, the business even exploded even more into the future.
I think it was more of a time that was in limbo, and maybe the language that he once read was no longer that language. And because he wasn't seeing it that way from his perspective, it probably made it seem as if it was dying when really it was speaking a different language he didn't understand because it was in transition.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really know.
No, it's just thinking about it in perspective, but that'd be the the most professional way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing, like to me, I have been sidetracked so many times trying to think about the big picture of stuff rather than just focusing on the details and, kind of following what it's hard to try to predict the future of the industry.
Yeah.
But I think we also have we can also kind of direct the future of the industry also. So, and I think podcasts like this are one of the better ways to do that.
Yeah. And that, with this whole pandemic, that's what started us doing the podcast. We were just trying to figure out a way to, one, stay relevant in the market with content when you can't go to shows and events or do anything, and you're kind of considered locked into your house at that point in time, right? That first year, you got to be creative and think outside the box. And, what inspired me was Rennie when he was doing his. I was like, that's a perfect way to still keep everything alive with, being able to keep relevant content and communication and just putting good content out. And what people want is they want to, they don't get to go to shows. So how are you going to get to learn to know somebody or get to meet somebody? And why not do this virtually? And that way someone like myself could ask a bunch of questions and sit around and hang out and talk to friends, and people get to listen to it and realize that we're real people and as organic as can be and natural. So I like it. No, and I don't get the opportunity to listen to others' podcasts, but I strongly respect and believe that it definitely helps our industry, like you said, hugely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's amazing just to hear all these different voices in the industry. And like you said, the shows, because man, the trade shows are, even though they're a lot of work and they're stressful and they make you crazy tired, it's one of the most important parts of the business because a lot of people become your friends, right? And it's a lot more difficult to become friends over a podcast or Zoom or, even over the phone or texting. So, meeting up with people, man, Mobile Tech I think that was the best trade show I've been to yet, the one that we just had.
Yeah.
And that was because it'd been so long since we'd seen so many of our friends.
Yeah, it was nice for sure.
Yeah.
Now, you have obviously, with growing and going from couple towels to a whole assortment and a whole spectrum of all types of things with quite a few patents to follow. But, for me, I want to talk about the most popular one, I think, is the Saber Applicator. Now, tell me the backstory on how that happened, because that right there, with you bringing that to the market and owning it and patenting it, and it's so simple, but yet so badass, and it works, and it's like the go-to. So tell me, how'd that happen?
Yeah, so really, man, we've been selling microfiber applicators for 15 years, right? So since long before ceramic coatings came around. Yeah. And it was a good product, right? It was for people use them for wax application or
all sorts of things. Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. But then when the ceramic coating started coming around, people were just using the suede cloth with the little foam block.
Yeah.
And we just we started getting calls like every day, people, first of all, asking if they could use our applicators with ceramic coatings, which, seemed to be okay. So, but then people would come back and be like, man, these things are just soaking up so much of the product. The product's so expensive. These bottles are a couple $100. Like, I feel like it's just stealing all of our product. And so it was just something over and over again. And this is what it is for so many different products in this industry. We just get customers asking us or, telling us the problem. And so it took a while, to kind of figure out the solution. I tried all different types of stuff. Like we tried putting removable glue, like tape, to make the sheet like glue onto the applicator. We tried foams that didn't absorb. But really what we ended up doing was just kind of gluing like a plastic Tyvek layer to the back of the microfiber and then wrapping it around the sponge. And so, yeah, it really did kind of end up solving. And so the interesting thing was there was already guys in the industry who were kind of solving the problem. There was another guy that I met at one of these trade shows, kind of like around the time that I was coming out with the applicator. He's like, oh man, let me show you Kevin Awalt. I don't know if you guys know.
Yeah.
So
he's up
was,
in New York.
Yeah. So I think it may have been at that same trade show. He wanted to show me like this, what he does with his applicator. So what he did, he would take apart one of the applicators, wrap it in a plastic bag, then wrap it in a microfiber towel. And he was like, we got to, this is how I do my coatings. It saves so much product. And it was amazing because I had already started production on our Saber applicator. So I was like, man, right when I get home, I'm going to send you a sample. And so, I got home from the trade show, sent him samples of the product. And he was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is like, you got to make this. And I was like, it's coming. So
yeah,
it was an idea that I think other people were working on. I think that's just how these ideas come along, right? People are all trying to solve the same problem. And I was in kind of just the unique position to where I had the ability and I had been spending time and hearing kind of the messaging from the customers. And so, we just keep trying to develop the product too. So we've come out with different sizes and shapes. And now we have one where it's just like a sheet, more like, and then it Velcros on to the applicator. So you're not wasting as much of the, not throwing away foam every time. And it can be a little bit more cost effective. And
what have you heard, not to interrupt you, but what have you heard from your, all the customers and everybody talking to you when people utilize those applicators for coating a vehicle, right? And they're done with an applicator. What are some of the other universal applications that they could still use that applicator for? Even though it's shot, we know that there's spent coating on it, but what are some other areas that you've heard people reusing them?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, guys are using them for tire shine application. I think that's the number one that people are doing. And some people even like cut them apart and take the foam out, use the foam for other types of dressing application. So man, you detailers are so intuitive and like inquisitive that they will take anything and turn it into something else.
Yeah.
Right. So the ideas and the creativity out there is phenomenal.
Yeah. That's why I asked, because I'm sure you've heard it all in regards to that.
Oh, it's amazing. And the other crazy thing about it too, for some coatings, the applicators don't work that well. There's some coatings that require like a wet application where they actually soak the applicator in water first and then apply. So actually the barrier layer of the applicator doesn't work. So, and then for different types of coatings, different types of materials work better on the microfiber. So there's actually a lot of, and then different size vehicles, RVs, boats, they want different types of stuff. So there's still a lot of different innovations and options and possibilities that we can do to make, to evolve this kind of product line over time. Yeah.
That Saber applicator from its, the first original approach, just taking a basic microfiber applicator and turned it to where you are now with the different products that still reflect on that idea.
Yeah.
That speaks for itself because how innovative it is. But you got obviously a lot of different things that you've come to the table with, but that one specifically stands out because that was a game changer for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny when I first made it, and before I even ever sold one, I brought them to a bunch of different coating companies, and they were very resistant against it.
They can't sell as many coatings.
Yeah, that was the feedback I got.
Our product sales will go down because of this damn thing.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, look at this applicator. It saves 50% of the product for your customer. And they're like, what? No.
What? You're not speaking my language.
Yeah, and so that was I was like, all right, it was good that I was shifting away from, not necessarily away from the wholesale factor of the business, but more direct to consumer, because the consumer, it was a problem that was going to get solved by somebody if it wasn't us, right? So there was no way I was going to leave that on the table. And so the good thing from a business perspective is having that idea, attached to our business, and people understand that Autofiber is kind of an innovator in the industry. Because that's kind of how it's been from the beginning. Like, we've always been kind of on the cutting edge and the front lines of bringing these new products to market. So
now, with the lineup that you have, do you still have some new products that you would say that you're working on? You don't have to mention, I'm just saying, like, with right now relevantly, is there stuff that you're actually working on to bring to market in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So yeah, I've got a bunch of different stuff. Now it takes years, like, and man, I have so many failed designs. Like, I literally have like racks and racks and racks of like hundreds of different failed products. And I go back to them. It's like a library that I go back to. If there's a new idea or problem that needs to be solved, sometimes there's a tangential product that I can apply to something else. But even just for myself, like, I just like to tinker with stuff and come up with ideas. And so yeah, we've got glass tools, wheel tools that we're working on. But none of them are quite ready for prime time, or they're kind of like, we're waiting for the parts to come, through the supply chain. One of the other better products for us has been the Scrub Ninja. I don't know if you've used.
I have,
Yeah. So that
those.
one is surprisingly, I mean, not really surprisingly, because the product works amazing. And it's a pretty unique product.
It's a better and more effective, but yet safe replacement for the traditional dry eraser.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, so one product that we sold years and years ago, we've been selling those melamine sponges, those magic erasers, for years, right? But I've never felt comfortable selling them into the automotive space, just because they can cause so much damage. Like, they can remove clear coat, or they remove the coating on leather seats, and they can just destroy plastic. So yeah, Scrub Ninja is kind of like a more mild, less aggressive version of that product, where a microfiber towel lots of times can't cut through some of this grime. The Scrub Ninjas, and it's almost like, it's like a brush in a sponge. But man, that product, we can't keep it in stock because it's just
Once I got my hands on one, I was the same way. I was addicted afterwards. I was like, how did I never have this? And it was out a while before I picked one up to try it. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, now you have different versions of it, which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing, we're always trying to experiment, right? So, trying all these different ideas and different shapes and sizes and stuff like that to see what kind of catches with detailers. Because like we said, there's so many different ways to do the same, to reach the same goal.
Yeah.
So what one guy likes, somebody else is going to want, something slightly different.
Yeah, no, and I would say the other product that was very innovative, which was so simple too, was just putting numbers on the towel for the coating guys.
Yeah, yeah. The quadrant. So yeah, that was another one where I thought it was a silly idea at first, honestly, but the idea came from, probably, I think within a couple months, I had gotten like 5 or 6 guys just asking me, like, how do I keep track? Like, it was just something that in these conversations, detailers were mentioning over and over again. Like, they're losing track of which side of the towel they're using. Like, lots of times they'll be coating a car and get a phone call, and then they'll throw the towel down and they'll come back and not know. And so they're telling multiple guys tell me they're smelling the towel, like, oh my God, this is so horrible.
Putting it to their nose to see which, because they got gloves on, so they can't feel which side's damp. So they're like, put the damp. Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, so we, you know, I tried all different kinds of ways. I tried making different colors in the quadrants, and then trying, you know, different like ways of marking them, because a lot of guys also were just marking off the sides with a marker.
Yeah.
So I thought, even launching the product, I was like, man, I was kind of worried that people were going to like call us out for being too gimmicky. But it's, man, I've gotten lots of great feedback and people love the product. I think one place where it really excels is for shops that are trying to implement a standard operating procedure, right? Who are not only just color coding, but coming up with a very specific process for their employees to follow.
Yeah.
And I think that is, you know, with the microfiber and the whole idea with Autofiber is to try to like get our products to kind of fit into that philosophy of being, you know, systems based and solving a problem and becoming more efficient. Because microfiber is kind of a commodity, and there can be a race to the bottom in terms of price. People want cheaper, cheaper, cheaper because it's something they're using, right? But then it becomes to a point where, you know, you can actually be costing yourself more by saving money on a cheaper product.
Because it's taking more time now. Now
it's
you're paying
taking more time
versus product.
Exactly. And in the opposite realm, we can make a more high quality product that's going to save you time and save you effort, right? It's almost like the flip side of that mentality, which the detailing industry is switching to more and more.
Yeah.
Guys are, I don't know, there's a lot more sophistication in terms of people realizing that their business is a matter of, you know, how much time and effort they can save to provide that value for their customers. And so what we're really doing is trying to innovate tools that are going to help, you know, serve that end.
And that's what helps with the growth aspect. Like you said, SOP at a business, you know, is great, because if you're looking at being able to scale based on growth, then having those tools like that will make it to where that process is more streamlined. And let's face it, when you've got good tools and a good process with, you know, as a whole with the SOP, there's less likely or less opportunity for liability, less, you know, for error. You know, can it still happen? Yes, but it helps that window get smaller for those opportunities.
Yeah, and not only that, I think one of the biggest pain points for detailed businesses is the employee factor, right? Like getting good employees, keeping good employees, because really, it's a pretty technical, you know, skill, and it's easy to make a big mistake, right? So and then, you know, it's hard work too. So, you know, keeping your employees happy and making it simple for them, and just having systems, you know, all the successful businesses are creating systems, you know, for their employees to run on.
No, that's the biggest thing. Like with the trainings that I do offer, perform, whatever, however you want to title it. However, when I have students in front of me, we're doing coatings or even polishing it. I call it proper towel etiquette. Mark Elliott gets on me about it all the time because the way I describe that, because towels, you got 8 sides, you know, having all those, and whether it's numbered or not numbered, it's just paying attention and understanding the management of that towel, you know, keeping it on the vehicle. Why? Because you clean that vehicle. You know that vehicle surgically clean. Anywhere else on you, on a basket, wherever it may be in the shop, is not as guaranteed to be surgically clean like you did that vehicle. So it's like, it's little things like that, watching your towel, but keeping an eye on it. And that process, by doing that, having that proper towel etiquette, making sure that you put your towel on a pedestal, makes a world of a difference. And then the quality, I mean, that is, anybody who does coatings knows that not every towel takes off the coating the same. And for that reason right there is why you should have proper towels, quality towels. Can some of these guys get away with these cheap Kirkland ones that you know what I mean, that we all see online? yeah, when you're burning through a coating brand specifically that has you removing a lot of material and burning through the towel, I could see where cost effectiveness comes into play, but there's still some quality towels that still give you a good price point to accommodate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when it comes, like you said, when it comes to the coatings, it's not only this coating or the towel, but it's also the environment. Like in different environments, different parts of the country, the coatings work different. So there's so many variables with this. And so, man, it's tough because we get these questions from customers about which one's best or whatever. And my answer is almost always, man, you got to test it with the product you're using, in the environment you're in, with the process you're using, and then, you know, figure out which towel works best for you. But man, the towel etiquette thing is so important. And so I used to have to explain to people all the time because people are like, oh, scratch free, microfiber scratch free or whatever. And I'm like, no, nothing scratch free. Like anything can scratch if you rub hard enough, or if the towel's contaminated, or if the paint is soft, or there's so many ways. Like you can take the softest towel ever and ruin something if you're doing it incorrectly. So yeah, man. And then when it comes to like even just the folding of the towel thing, and honestly, that came from Mike Phillips. He had a post, you know, on those forums. It may have been the Autopia forum, and this was probably like 2004 or 2005 or something.
In his words, he wrote an article on that.
Yeah, no, he did. He wrote an article on it. It was funny at the last Mobile Tech, he came by the booth, you know, and I had all those quadrant towels with the numbers out on them, and he was asking about the products, and I was like, you know, this is your idea, right? Like originally this comes from you, right? You know, because, you know, he was the one that really, you know, was pressing that idea, you know, because people were just grabbing a towel and just, you know, a bundle of a towel.
Blazed the trail on writing articles for the forums and putting so much rich content out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. And same thing, man, like AutoGeek, they built their business on amazing content, right? Like Bob,
leading by education.
Yeah, Bob just was the best writer of descriptions and articles and stuff like that. Like, if I remember correctly, he was actually writing all that content, you know, for the site, you know.
I believe in the beginning, and then
in the beginning,
then the team built up to
absolutely, yeah. Well, just
obviously
like anything,
those tasks, right? Those tasks ended up started becoming other people's tasks.
Yeah. So that was one of the cooler things to watch from my perspective, was to watch AutoGeek's growth and expansion.
You were right there in that beginning stages.
Yeah, right there, like just watching it. It was amazing to see, because they kind of started around the same time we did. Another company that started around the same time was Adam's Polishes. So to watch Adam grow, you know, because I had known him kind of from the beginning.
I know, hearing his story when I had him on the podcast, I didn't know much about the backstory. Oh my God, that is an amazing story. That is inspiring. The way,
I mean, he hustled hard for it, man, and the way his business evolved over time, pretty amazing.
It is.
So
now, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that, I mean, the industry is awesome. So
it is. And I was gonna say, to your point with testing towels and testing in general, I have a term. It's called testing is investing, you know, especially as a detailer, right? I mean, obviously you could get a little bit down the rabbit hole with a lot of different products that are not as useful as others, just because you start to go crazy, but put a little bit of money out there to buy a couple things, just to challenge those things, to make sure that they fit in your business model, your process. But testing is investing, you know what I mean? Don't get too crazy with it, because those things, that R&D will allow you to really dial in your process, your products, everything you need to be successful to make your business the way you want it to, and dictate that.
Yeah, 100%. So I try to look at our business, and I think every business is kind of a science experiment, right? You have to constantly be testing. And that's why I said earlier, I was like, man, I've been failing for 20 years, right? Because I've made more bad decisions, than good decisions. But that is just the business philosophy of, testing and making errors and learning and becoming more efficient over time. If you're not, you can always become more efficient.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Always, that you're never perfect, because
How much you want it is the question.
yeah, because the environment's always changing. The world and the business environment too is always changing.
Yep.
So
what you're willing to do or what you're not willing to do.
yeah, exactly. So man, I love it. So
No, it's cool. It's why and seeing people like yourself who have evolved with it and watch that, it's cool being able to see that, not only have you blazed the trail for yourself within the microfiber category, but you've set standards and not only continue to be relevant, but are one of the most relevant in regards to microfiber brands. So
Yep.
all those things that, as individuals, your past, what it took to get there. Like you said, there was a lot of failure, but at the end of the day, the people on the outside looking in see that you and what you built and the legacy of that brand that you built have been very successful. And of course, for that, that's why you should be super duper proud of everything you've done. Of course, including your family who has helped you along the way. But
yeah, 100%.
the brand.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, man, I feel like I'm at like 30 or 40% of the potential of what we could do. So like, I just feel like still the sky is the limit, not only with the detailing industry and with microfiber, but even just, business in general. I'm super excited for the future of the business and everybody in the industry. I think that it's on a great trajectory.
Oh yeah. You still got a long road ahead of you. I mean, for being 25, you're doing good.
I'm 42, man. I started when I was 21. And so I've actually been doing this for more than half my life, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, it's become your life.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Same here. Now we're coming up on time. So as far as any words of advice for those that are listening, whether it be, end user, distributors, people we worked with, or people just now learning who you are, is there anything that you could put out there that would be helpful?
No, I mean, email me anytime, Ian at autofiber.com. And if you have any like ideas or problems, with our products, let me know directly, because that really does help evolve our products. And then for sure, come to any of these trade shows, Mobile Tech, SEMA, and then we're going to be going to the Southern Detailers Conference also. Get involved with the IDA if you can. Some of the best relationships I've gotten through this industry have been through that. And man, I just say, keep pushing forward, because and learning, because that's the cornerstone for business for me. It's just always learning and evolving, like we said, testing. So
nice. Well, cool. Well, Ian, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us and be a guest on the Reflection Artist Live. And having you on is great, because this is, one more podcast that adds to the value for the industry, for people being able to get to know you and about the Autofiber brand and everything you bring to the table. So thank you.
awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, and thanks for everything you do, man. You're crushing it out there. So I really appreciate you having me on and letting me be involved with this. So
yeah, no, for sure. And so Southern Detailers Conference, like you mentioned, that is going to be the first weekend of June, which I believe is the 4th and 5th, which is a Saturday and Sunday. There's that, which is going to be in Kentucky this year, and amazing show. Definitely, you got time to save up for some plane tickets and hotel to get your butt out there and get in front of the manufacturers, because this will give you time with each of them. Whether it be Autofiber, Auto Geek, Buff and Shine, all of us will all be there, a bunch of other great manufacturers as well. But this will give you an opportunity to talk with Ian more, or message him, like Ian mentioned, if you have any questions about anything microfiber or what Autofiber offers in general. So Ian, thank you. This is again Reflection Artist episode number 66. And everybody who had the opportunity to listen now, thank you. And in the future, on your own time, thank you for taking the time out to listen. So have a great rest of your day, Ian. Thank you again. And I'll catch you on the flip side. We'll chat some more.
All right. See you in a couple months.
All right. Take care, man.